Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, a Mitsubishi L200 Barbarian Review Special Edition. Hello, I'm Alan.
I'm Andrew.
Well, now I've set the tone.
You feel better now you've said barbarian.
Oh, always. Well, it's ridiculous. You can't say it any other way, really.
No, that is not a word that should be said remotely sensibly.
So there is L200 Barbarian.
There is no conversation or no sentence where that should be ever said sensibly and as in a matter-of-fact manner. It's not acceptable.
No, we'll quite. No, I think we'll come to that another few times over the course of the next half hour or so.
So, come on then, Alan. What is a Mitsubishi L200 Barbarian?
It is a pickup truck, Andrew. Very much from the lifestyle end of the pickup truck range. So the vehicle I had for a week was a quad cab. So it's 4-door pickup truck, basically, with a relatively shortish bed on the back, and it was a Barbarian specification, and that's the top of the range that Mitsubishi offers. You can have Barbarian, you can have Warrior, and you can have Titan, all of which come with the quad cab configuration that I've just talked about. If you don't want that, and if you want to...
So what's a quad cab, for anybody who doesn't know?
Quad cab's the 4 doors.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You can also get for life models, which actually are the more working spec. So they have things like hooks around the outside of the rear load bay and things, and ladder racks at the back, so that to actually protect things. Mm-hmm. And you can get the for life in quad cab, club cab, which is sort of 2 doors, but then there's a sort of seating for people with no legs behind it, but it means that there's some storage space in the cab. Mm-hmm. As well. And then there's single cab, which is just your 2 doors and then the wall right behind your driver and front passenger seats. Okay. So the Barbarian sits right at the top, and the top couple of ranges, certainly Barbarian and Warrior, I can't remember right now about Titan, come with slightly softer, more road biased, more leisure biased suspension, really.
Okay, what are we looking at money wise?
For the Barbarian, we are looking at just a smidgen under 32 grand. Okay. Which is a little bit cheaper. I mean, this was the automatic as well. It's worth mentioning that. And the price I'm giving is the on the road, including VAT. Mm-hmm. Okay, remember that many buyers of these for sort of work use or even for their home use, people buy them because they're a commercial vehicle, and so they don't have to pay the VAT, so that's 20% off. And then I believe the benefit in kind is different as well because it's a commercial vehicle. So okay, that's kind of one of the reasons people buy them for that.
What was it called?
So it's about that. Metallic paint, and mine came in an incredibly bright metallic blue, more of which later.
Okay then. Right, let's
more of which later. But I'm trying to remember what it was called. I do have it in my notes, but I've now lost it. Bright blue. But that's £516 extra. So there is a colour tax on anything other than flat white. By the way, the cheapest L200 is $21,883.80 for a single cab for life, and again that's including VAT. But nobody's going to buy those without reclaiming the VAT because that's pretty agricultural model. Mm-hmm. It's the A-plant model. It's the one you'd see at the side of the road with beacons on the roof.
Okay then, right. Well, talk us through these looks. You've mentioned that there's it was quite a vivid blue.
Right. So let me give a bit of context here, because I'm no stranger to pickup trucks. But our family has a haulage and plant hire company. My father has bought more pickup trucks, even of one brand, of a competing brand, than he can care to remember over the last decade or so. So I took it up there, basically. I took it up to my parents in central Perthshire. And the reason I'm giving all this background is because when you're up there are an awful lot of pickup trucks. Okay, there's a lot of L200, a lot of Isuzu D-Max, Toyota Hilux, Nissan Navara, that kind of stuff. And they're all kind of muted. They're driven by people who do, fencers. They're driven by gamekeepers.
They're working people.
They're driven by, they're working trucks for people who work in the outdoors. So, of course, I turn up there, and I'm kind of known by people, and I turn up in this bright blue. The colour is called electric blue. That gives you an idea what it's like. And not only was this the top spec Barbarian, and it is. I mean, some of you will have seen pictures on Twitter and Instagram and stuff. So it is bright blue, but not just that. The Barbarian trim comes with chromey door handles and chromey boot tailgate release and chromey grille and chromey mirrors and a stick-on chromey fuel cap cover and chromey mesh in the front, and then Mitsubishi had seen fit to this being a press car to add to the spec. So I had chromey lifestyle-y pseudo roll hoop thing on the back and chromey back bumper, and so I was in this bright blue thing covered in chrome, and any time I was driving it through Aberfeldy, you just got this feeling of, all right, there's the boy, look what he's driving. These townies, and it was cringeworthily bright and a bit brash for me personally. Now, if you want, in your heart of hearts, to own a Dodge Ram, or a Ram, as it's called, that truck, covered in chrome and being American and Texas edition and all this kind of stuff, but you can't bring yourself to actually live with left-hand drive and import and size. This is the next best thing. If you want to stand out and be seen, it's great. If you are someone who is known in certainly whose father is known in a community where there's lots of people who do working things with working trucks, and you turn up with this thing mincing along on its little 17-inch alloy wheels with its diamond cut multicoloured spokes, it's a bit much. So okay, I find it very difficult. Sorry, I've got to get this. Let me get this out. I have to have got that out of my system. I'm really sorry, Mitsubishi. I really am. But it was quite bad from that point of view. And this, I'm going to say now, is the issue I had with this vehicle. Okay, just about everything else I'm going to say is wonderful. But goodness me, the Barbarian spec is a bit much. The lower specs, and I should really say this, the lower specs, the Warrior and the Titan, they are very tasteful. Okay, there's a little bit of chrome, and it's quite nice. You can say it's one that it's not A plant spec or whatever, and it's just right. But the Barbarian is just, for me personally, too much. I feel better now. That was really cathartic. I'm so sorry.
So apart from this spec, then let's get onto the meat of this
can I say one other thing, which is sort of looks related, but more the outside related? It's very, very large. Okay, by domestic vehicle standards, it's very long. So
is that long, or is that wide, or is it all of the above?
It's quite wide, but it's very long. I mean, it's too. And we've already spoken about the Outlander, and I went off and looked up. It's 2 feet longer than that was. Okay, so it doesn't fit lengthwise. If you put the front bumper at the front of a Tesco parking space,
yeah, you stick out.
The back bumper is just over a foot into the parking space behind, and this one didn't have a tow bar. So a tow bar would add another 8 inches or so onto that.
So I'm presuming then that you were parking centred up at this point.
Well, that's a good question, actually. Rear view camera, yes. No front. I think it was rear only parking sensors.
Okay.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that because I just relied on the camera basically. Because actually parking sensors on pickup truck can be a bit of a pain, especially if you're doing proper work with it, and of course, and you've got a trailer on and stuff, because that's one of the main reasons for having ones, towing. And then parking sensors become a bit hypersensitive to stuff. But rear view camera was pretty good. Mounted nice and close to the centre as well. I've seen them on some other pickups where they're a bit off to the side. Okay. But I think that now that people are designing them in earlier in the design, rather than tacking them on afterwards, it's much better. So yeah, it was good. It didn't, it wasn't one of the ones that steers to show you where where you're going to end up and stuff. But it was nice and clear, and you could see pretty much right down, so you had a good idea where your bumper was.
Okay, good. So what was it like to drive? Apart from you were hiding below the steering wheel, in case
apart from
friends of your parents saw.
Yeah. So to drive, you know what? I did a lot. So I did about 1,000 miles in a week.
Well, just to explain because I know where you've been, but just explain to everybody the sort of roads you took it on as well. Because to be fair, you've given it the full gambit of all the roads it would travel on.
Yeah, I did. So the Folkestone back, which is like getting on for a 700-mile round trip. A lot of motorways. So quite a lot of motorway, some country roads, some of my favourite driving roads. And then, of course, little tiny lanes. We went up Glenlyon, went round Loch Rannoch. These kind of things. Well, not all the way around Loch Rannoch. And I also did a fair bit of climbing sort of estate tracks, basically. So not sort of super axle articulating, let's off-road type rock crawling or anything. But we did quite a bit of Dad and I took it round to inspect hydro schemes locally, because there was some stuff that we wanted to see. So it was rough track. Basically.
But you also took it in places where perhaps this exact spec would be more seen, which is sort of more urban-y.
I did. Well, I also had it right down the other way, and I went right down to Southampton and stuff, and Basingstoke and all these kind of places. So I did a wee bit. I didn't have it into the middle of London. That's about the only... You kid, but that's about the only... Proper inner city was about the only place I didn't take it when it comes. I mean, it was climb every mountain, ford every stream, basically, within the ranges of let's not damage the press car, because as we all know, damaging press cars is neither big nor clever.
No, it's not.
No.
It is not something we wish to do.
No, I don't wish to experience that. So how did it drive, really, which is all a lead up to that, is... Do you know what? Pretty good. As I said, some of these higher spec ones have a slightly different suspension setup from the sort of super working spec models. Motorway was good. That nice long... So, of course, the rear has a live axle semi-elliptical springs, okay? So it is never, ever, ever going to be as smooth and as comfortable as anything that's fully independent suspension, all that kind of thing. Okay, so let's work within the parameters. It's got a stiff back rear suspension. It's got practically no weight over the back wheels. So let's...
Because that's what I was going to ask. You've driven pickups before, so obviously you understand the foibles of them.
I have had more scares in pickups than any other type of vehicle.
Yes, but that's perhaps from where you're driving them. No, sorry, I'm joshing. What I was going to ask was, because I'm going to play the part of the person who knows nothing. I know it's a stretch, but I'm going to play it. Just let's work with me on this one. What I'm going to ask is, what changes do you need to make to your driving style, or what do you need to be aware of if you're driving a pickup?
Right. You need to be aware that is a live rear end with nothing above it. Mm-hmm. So if you are coming out of a corner and you boot it, and so most are turbo diesels, of course, and it wasn't so much of an issue with this one because it was an auto and a 5-speed auto that was well matched. But what used to happen was the turbo would kick in.
Okay.
You'd be partway through around a corner in the wet in a pickup truck, and that just happened to be where the turbo would kick in. Then the back would step out. It was that simple. Now, this obviously that's not, as more people buy pickup trucks for lifestyle purposes and carrying their motorbikes and stuff and being lifestyle, then that becomes less and less acceptable. So this one did have stability control, first of all, but which I don't think I ever saw it kick in. Okay, and I think that softer rear suspension was a big factor in that.
Okay.
So that helped, but that's really the key: is you don't lift off mid corner. You don't. Their natural tendency is oversteer. So You're just always aware of that. And you sit quite far forwards. But on the other hand, in this, nice long wheelbase, which means that when they do oversteer, then it's more controllable than, say, the Vehicross, if it does, or anything like that. But just not... If you don't drive like a in this, then it's perfectly okay.
Okay.
In this one, and I really did find that its level of stability was really quite high. Because the suspension is quite stiff, there's very little roll. But still, on narrow country roads and on sort of hilly A roads, so I'm specifically thinking about the road from Crieff to Aberfeldy. But even around here in Corby, then it was a bit bouncy because I never drove it with any load in the load bay. Okay, which is probably not hugely fair, but it's worth pointing out. I didn't drive it with a load, and I know that when you put a load in the back of these things, that extra weight's important because it makes the ride smoother. So bearing that in mind, on motorways it was great, nice long wheelbase and smooth roads, so that was great. On smaller A roads, it was a bit bouncy, but not bad.
Mm-hmm.
And off-road, actually, it soaked it up not badly at all. It was pretty good off-road.
Good.
Well, tracks and stuff.
When you were driving along the motorways and the normal roads and everything, did you have to work hard to keep up with traffic, or was... No. Well, this is a 5-speed auto and a 2.4 litre turbo diesel. And they were really nicely matched. So the auto was practically seamless all the time. Good. And whilst it wasn't quick, I think it's 12-point-something seconds to 60. Well, that's not exactly snail pace either, is it?
It's not snail pace. No, it's perfectly adequate. I never felt that it was too slow. I never felt it couldn't keep up with traffic. I could set the cruise control and it wouldn't grumble about hills or anything. Now, bear in mind, it was myself and the suitcase most of the time. It was not the greatest use case for a pickup truck. But with just me, then it was perfectly capable. And that auto box was really good. One of the things that surprised me about the auto box, by the way, was that it actually came with paddle shifters.
Oh.
And they weren't just nasty little plastic tabs. They were proper cast metal paddle shifters.
So did you find yourself playing with them rather a lot?
Not on the road. On the road, they were useless. Okay, they were silly, because the last thing you want is to shift down too hard, lock up the back wheels, because you're in two-wheel drive on the road, and then you just add to the whole... Pickups can be tricky setup, so I just didn't.
Yeah.
But actually, off-road, they were really, really good, because they meant that you could knock it into a lower gear and get the engine braking without having to take your hand off the steering wheel. Either hand off the steering wheel. You could keep both on there. And they've got another really nice feature, which I don't know. I mean, I've had a car with them that does this, but if you held the up one for a couple of seconds, it didn't just try and change up. It basically returned you to normal full drive mode. So there was no kind of shuggling around the gear selector stick to sort that out afterwards. And that was really nice. And I used that quite a lot coming down coming down tracks and things where you want that engine braking rather than jabbing the brakes. And I used that for like a mile and a bit at a time to give you an idea of the kind of distances I was doing off-road.
Okay, so you say you took it off-road. I presume four-wheel drive was pretty decent and stuff like that. Did you engage that?
Oh, yeah. You've got to. And you've got to shout, let's off-road at the same time. I did. It was, in this, instead of it being... Now, I'm used to the Vehicross, of course, it's a second transfer lever. So, you've got your gear stick or your gear selector. It's automatic. And then you've got a transfer case lever as well, which is the little stubby one that people used to hang their curries off in Discoveries, which is what gave rise to the whole curry hook thing. But this didn't have one of those. This had a little knob. So you just turned it to select what mode you wanted. And you had your choice of two-wheel drive high, four-wheel drive high with an open center diff, which is fine for on the road and stuff. You had four-wheel drive high with a locked central diff. So that means front and rear wheels are always getting 50% of the kind of torque each. Mm-hmm. And then you have low wheel drive, four-wheel drive low with a locked central diff as well. So that's it, moves it into the lower set of gears for that, so that you've got more go, more torque, or that you've got more engine braking, the alternative. So it helps hold you back much better going down hills and things. I tried them all because you've got to, really. But the thing that got me was with the knob. You turned it, and it seemed to take ages to engage either the all-wheel drive or sometimes to disengage. But it took a while to do that, and you couldn't. With the levers that I'm used to, you can just give it a knock to make sure that it is properly engaged, and go, well, it is engaged, so it'll click in. But with the sometimes it did seem to flash for quite a long time. And, you're trying to creep forward or creep backwards to just let it, with the steering wheel straight and stuff, to try and let it engage. And it would just keep going for ages. So sometimes I'm not 100% certain if things were actually locked when I was in four-wheel drive or not. But it's not that I ever got stuck because I didn't. Okay. I wasn't doing anything silly enough, to be honest.
Well, you said earlier in this episode, you said that you took your father out, and he's owned many pickups.
Basically, if you say pick up to my father, he thinks Hilux straight away.
Okay, so you were getting an independent view on this. What was the...
He's not that independent.
Well, you were getting...
He's not that independent, given he's highly Toyota biased.
Yeah, you were getting a different viewpoint.
Yeah, so he eventually, after I had chauffeured him around most of Highland Perthshire, declared that actually it wasn't so bad, really, was it?
That's high praise.
Which is actually quite high praise. He was quite impressed with how comfortable it was and with the finish, particularly inside.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's move into it then.
He was a bit like me about the chrome, by the way. Yeah. So inside, the outside, as I've said, was a bit...
It's a bit much for you.
It's a bit much. The inside, so dashboard, starting in the front, really. Dashboard and stuff was really nice and clear. I was really surprised that it actually came, that, believe it or not, the top level models come with dual zone aircon.
Oh, wow.
For climate control. Yeah, I again, a bit like the paddle shifters, really wasn't expecting that. But it's nice big clear buttons. It's nicely finished. There's quite a few different tones of grey, but they're intentionally different. So it's not as if they're sort of very, very similar. So there's a very light grey, and then there's silver accents, sort of pseudo-brushed aluminium-y effect. And then there's darker greys as well. But because they were obviously meant to be different tones, it looked pretty good. Seats in this one were leather. There was some dark leather and some light leather highlights, and there were also some little bits that were, get this folks, carbon fibre effect leather, which was a bit much. But to be honest, my bum didn't really notice when I was sitting on it, so it didn't matter. The seats were comfy, and all the instruments were really very clear. So it was not a bad place. The inside was a nice place to be, and even I had a few hold-ups on the way north to on the way up the road, and the seat was still comfortable after 6.5 hours and stuff.
Okay, I mean that's good to hear, because you know sometimes these vehicles will be driven a lot, so or for long periods of time. So you know the comfort is a big thing. What were the controls like to use? Were they all simple? Were they where you expected them?
Yeah, they were. They were good, nice, solid. Yes, yeah. There was nothing. The only thing that was really a bit of a pain was it's got this trip computer. It's a very basic one, just in the instrument binnacle, and it shows you one thing at a time, so it can show you range or your miles per gallon and that kind of thing. But the only way you could change it was via the little reset-y pin thing in the binnacle. Really? So to flick between stuff, you had to reach through the top half of the steering wheel to flick between stuff, which wasn't, when you're on the go, that's possibly not the best thing ever. But yeah, I mean, you've got cup holders, you've got bottle holders in the door, cup holders in the central binnacle, a sort of bucket-sized thing underneath the armrest, a hole underneath the armrest which had a 12-volt socket as well. Cubby box, that's what I mean. All these kind of things in the front, so that wasn't a problem. In the back, it was nice and wide. You'd probably fit 3 adults across for short journeys. You could easily fit 3 kids across. If you only had 2, then in the middle you could fold down the armrest and it had 2 cup holders in it as well.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, it was quite clever. You could fold the seat base up, I think, too, if you had something bigger to put inside. And what was nice about that was it had, tinty windows in the back. So privacy glass, pardon me.
Yes.
In the back, so that if you did, like me, just have your case and stuff in the rear footwell, then nobody could see it.
Was the floor in the back flat, or was there a transmission tunnel?
Yeah, it was near as darn it flat.
Okay, that's good.
It's body on frame construction, so everything was high enough up.
Yeah, okay.
That it's not.
Well, to be honest, that's what I was hoping, considering what it was. So,
yeah.
So, out the very back, you've mentioned the load bay that you didn't load.
It. Well, I didn't. I actually, this one came and it had the roller shutter style mountaintop cover on it, which actually is the best compromise if you don't want, to have a harp and a not harp. If you don't want a hard top, a big top over it. And some of them you get with this awful coupe, like, want to make it an X6 thing, which is just grim.
Well, you lose the practicality.
Well, that's the problem normally with the load covers. So the solid load covers that just kind of hinge up and down, you lose all the practicality. You end up with a very large flat thing, which you can't put you can't put even vaguely tall boxes in, because we had those on one of the original Hilux Invincibles we had in the company. Or you have the sort of big canopy top on the back, which turns it into a van, which is not good if you need to load stuff over the side and things. You have to reach in over the drop down tailgate.
Yeah,
in there. So actually, this roller top was the best compromise I've seen. Now, I didn't put anything in the back, simply because there are no curry hooks in the back of pickup. I did open it. I did look.
Very disappointing.
That was only because I couldn't close it again. The only time I opened it was for a security check to prove that I wasn't. I don't know what it was to do. But it was. But there was no hooks, nothing like that round about. So if I'd put my case and stuff in, not only as I was driving along would it have slid around, but once I come to a hole, and stopped to get it out, then to actually get it would have meant, you had to reach over an 18-inch deep tailgate, first of all. And then the bed's, 4 foot deep? So 5.5 foot to the front of the thing, and you try and get your suitcase out of it. So it's actually, unless you're carrying stuff which can be wedged in place, or you need it exposed, so you can tie it down, and all these kind of things, then actually the load bay of a pickup's a bit of a pain. And that's not specific to the L200, by the way. That's just a general comment on using a pickup truck as a car. It's just not great for that.
Okay.
Which is why I never used it. It was easier for me to just sling stuff in the bag.
Yeah.
If it had been like bags of Tesco shopping and stuff, then they would have been all over the place.
Okay.
So,
what tech did it have?
Well, I've talked about the reversing camera, so that's fine. It had lane departure warning. Now, normally I'm a huge fan of active safety systems, things like that. The trouble was, it was on the paranoid end of sensitive to start with. And secondly, it's quite a wide vehicle on very narrow roads. And quite a wide vehicle is quite hard suspension. So most of the time you want to be out a little bit from the curb.
Yeah.
So you're not going bang, 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 bang through all the drain covers and stuff. So this thing was bleeping like mad. So it became part of the startup procedure. You press the start button because it's that posh, and keyless and everything. And then you just press the lane departure warning button and turn it off, which was good. That just became part of it. We've talked before about Mitsubishi sat-nav systems. With the Outlander.
Are you going to say that you did not perhaps have the most enjoyable experience with the system?
It didn't help that it was delivered to me with every single setting being the opposite of what Alan would choose. Okay, so there was a lot of that. The trouble was that when I was poking through the buttons and turning everything back on or turning everything off, then I turned on curve alert. Okay, this is the most irritating setting I have ever discovered on a sat-nav. What it does is if you're driving along and you come to a corner and it decides that you're driving too fast for that corner, which might not even be that fast at all, I hasten to point out, okay, and certainly not an unreasonable speed, because I'm aware of back end stepping out stuff. Then what it will do is, as you're entering said bend or series of bends, it will bing at you. And that's not in any way, shape or form distracting. Oh no, it is. So just as you're going into a bend, you need to concentrate on the road. It's going bang, bang. And of course, you only discover this when you're halfway through the small glen.
Do you find yourself then going, what?
Well, the trouble was, I was running relatively low on fuel. And being a tight, miserable Scotsman, I was trying to get up the road so that I could fill from the yard diesel tank before I had to fill it up again. So I was quite low on that, so I couldn't, but then there were no flashing lights, so it was just bonging, and I couldn't work out what on earth was going on. And it was just a ridiculous thing to fit. So I eventually found out how to, worked out what the heck it was that was making this noise, was making it make that noise, and secondly, how to then try and turn it off again. So that was quite irritating. The other thing that was irritating was that it wouldn't let me select what music or audio book or podcast that I could play from my phone when I was plugged in via the USB port.
That's a bit tedious.
It was very tedious. So then I discovered that actually I could hook it up via Bluetooth, and that was really good.
Yes.
And it controlled nicely and all these things. And then, just as I'd kind of given up on the sat-nav at one point and was trying to find a hotel in Basingstoke. So anyone who's tried to drive through Basingstoke will have some sort of sympathy with me here. Trying to find a hotel in Basingstoke. I then discovered that even if you have it plugged into the USB port, but you're not playing via the USB port because it doesn't let you listen to what you want to listen to, including Waze voice commands, it doesn't charge the phone.
Oh.
So you're using up all your battery with the Bluetooth and the GPS for Waze because the hotel wasn't in the sat-nav. And then when you're within kind of a mile of it, then your phone goes flat. So you don't actually have a clue where you're going. You can't look up the name of the hotel because it's in your phone. Your phone's in a flat and stuff. That wasn't frustrating.
No, that's good. I'm glad you dealt with that in a calm and adult manner.
I did not swear.
That's good.
Yeah. Until I had rummaged around, found my auxiliary battery pack for my phone, and then got enough life into it that I could get to the hotel. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as it's based on a working vehicle, I presume there was, oodles of 12-volt charging points, and
there were two. Yeah, there were. Yeah, there was one for that one for the center console, which had a particularly high rating, so you could plug a whole bunch of stuff into that.
Okay.
If you went through a 4-way adapter, then it was a particularly high output one. It was many tens of watts, and then there was one at the front of the center console, I believe, if I remember correctly. I didn't use them in the end, but yeah.
Okay. So I think we've covered the exterior. It was large and chromy.
Yeah.
In this spec, anyway.
It's quite good looking, by the way. If you look through the chrome, it's fine.
Okay. So we've gone through the interior, which are comfy.
Yeah. And quite nice to look at.
And practical. And nice little surprises, such as paddles.
Yeah.
We've mentioned the technology, which is the sat-nav was a bit frustrating. USBs wouldn't charge. And connectivity was a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, when I've driven a Mitsubishi, I've just felt that it's just not quite up to date.
There was
their system's not quite up to date.
And I think this one needed upgraded.
I think that's what it is. If they do a big update, they do an overhaul of their system, it will come out and you'll go, oh yeah, that's fine, everything works now.
I think so, and I think they have been doing that, haven't they? With essentially the same system. I think this one also needed a map update too, which I have no bearing on that. So I think that helped. If the relatively new hotel had been in the sat nav, then I wouldn't have got frustrated with it draining my phone and stuff. So yeah, and the Outlander and stuff has CarPlay and stuff now. And I'm sure that'll feed through to the L200 if it's the same system. I think it is. So I'm sure that those ones will be sorted. To be honest, the only problems I really had with the L200 was that it was the Barbarian spec.
So it's just the looks, really, by the sound of it.
It was mostly the looks. If you can get past the chrome and just choose something... Well, there was something else about the interior, actually. It's not just the chrome. Well, I forgot to mention, it has two things which are really ridiculous. It has footwell lights, which are bright blue. It is. It's like a wee disco around your feet, if they flashed. And the other thing has illuminated kick plates. You open the door.
I'm seeing no problem with either of those.
Every single door, you open it and it goes Barbarian in big blue illuminated letters through the pseudo brushed aluminium effect doorstep thing.
You see, if I had my kids, they'd be delighted with that feature.
Yeah.
I think you're just being a grumpy bottom.
Being a grumpy bottom, that's right. So basically, if you're going to buy one, and if you're looking for a pickup truck, it is, it's cheaper than the Hilux. It's about the same price as the D-Max. But I wouldn't buy the Barbarian. I would probably buy the Warrior one, which is, you get all the same decent kit that you want without the fripperies.
So it's just slightly more muted visually.
Yeah, it doesn't have all the badging and chromey stuff all over it. But the important stuff, like, it even has the leather seats, and the heated seats, and the sat nav, and it's same engine, same all of that stuff, but without stitched in Barbarian on the seats and all these kind of things. So that would be my thing. Really liked it, really sound, should give years of service. if you're looking for a pickup truck. If you're not looking for a pickup truck, by the way, there is a Shogun Sport model coming along at some point in the very near future, which is essentially an L200, but it's all embodied like the old Shogun Sports were. Okay. So it is an SUV one, so you don't have to deal with that separate load bay and stuff. You just end up with a massive boot, which you can reach from inside the cabin. And I would be holding off for that, unless, of course, you desperately need to reclaim the VAT and stuff. But the Shogun Sport should be good because it's all the benefits without the drawbacks of the pickupness.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, that sounded kind of negative, and it wasn't meant to be.
Well, no, I mean, you've said you really enjoyed it. It was
features.
Just the visual ostentatiousness of it that was a bit too much for you.
Yes, it was.
And you liked the going and the driving and the sitting in. It was just the exterior looks that were just a bit too much for you. That's all.
Yeah,
that's where it's personal choice, isn't it? Then.
Yes. Yeah, quite.
Well, I don't think there's a problem there. Okay, well, thank you, Alan, for that. It's
pleasure.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, hopefully, you've enjoyed that, found that interesting and informative, as public speaking competition people at schools say. And actually, even now, how many years later, still cringe saying that. But don't forget that between now and the next time, you can give us any feedback and share your thoughts on the L200 pickup trucks in general, all these kind of things, with the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, which is the hub of all our activities. Please don't forget to leave a review and rating on iTunes, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. It really does matter. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you in between times?
Best way to get in touch is if you go onto Twitter and search for Crap Windscreen, you will find me there. And Alan, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Best way, again, Twitter, and it's at AJP Bradley. We'll be back before very long, but until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clews.
And safe motoring.